It's always raining in Revachol. For a game that ends with such an inspirational and hopeful message, at the beginning of Disco Elysium, there are so few rays of light. The strike between the Dockworkers Union and the Wild Pines Group is headed for disaster. The two people with the authority to de-escalate the situation are either powerless or laughably corrupt, and even our protagonist is recovering from a complete mental breakdown. But one of the consistent undercurrents for the game's ultimately bright message can be found in the story of Lena and Morell, a pair of elderly cryptozoologists who have come to Martinez looking for the Insulindian phasmid, a discovery that would not only make their careers, but serve as the crown jewel of their marriage. Lena and Morell serve as a foil to Harry's broken relationship with Dora, and help to demonstrate that there might yet be hope for our struggling protagonist. But before I go on, if you are a Disco Elysium fan, then please be sure to like, subscribe, and consider supporting me with a YouTube channel membership or over on Patreon. My dream is to make these videos full-time someday, and by doing any of those things, you'll be helping make that dream a reality. Harry meets Lena long before he meets Morell. She can be found in the cafeteria of the Whirling in Rags on day 1, on the far side of the room. If Harry attempts to converse with her before talking to Kim, she'll redirect him to the bespectacled lieutenant, which is basically the developer's way of telling the player to stop screwing around and get on with the plot. Once Kim's joined the party, most of Martinez is unlocked to the player, and it's at that point that they can actually get around to shooting the breeze with Lena. She'll tell them about her husband, explain that he's out hunting for the infamous Insulindian phasmid, and then talk their ear off about a variety of different cryptids, much to Kim's chagrin. Though the lieutenant can encourage their eccentric partner to only ask about one of them, Lena will be around all week, so Harry can feel free to learn all about the Revachol Rambling Rabbit and the Martinez Lake Monster as much as he wants when Kim isn't around. But probably my favorite early game moment with Lena is this one right here. If Harry attempts to run away when Gart reminds him about the 130 real he owes him, he'll sprint down the side of the room, turn around, and give the cafeteria manager a double-barrel salute, all while failing to realize that Lena is right behind him. He crashes into her, and though she's spared any damage, Harry himself is knocked out, prompting what amounts to our second conversation with the depressing tag team of the limbic system and the reptilian brain in less than half an hour. This scene never fails to make me laugh. The serious tone of the narrator, the way Harry does a perfect 180 spin and raises both of his middle fingers, and how quickly Gart gives in to our protagonist, reducing his bill and declaring that the Whirling is a, quote, cop-friendly establishment. It's all so damn funny. Despite the fact that Harry could have seriously injured her, Lena is very considerate towards him and asks him about his condition, which says a lot about just how kind of a person she is. I've spoken elsewhere about how Kim stands out as a positive influence in Harry's life, as a bright light in the darkness of Revachol. You can say the same, to a minor extent, about Lena. She's eccentric, sure, but she's consistently nice to Harry in a way that others often aren't, and conversations with her serve as a moment of levity in what is generally a rather bleak game. As mentioned earlier, Lena frequently brings up her missing husband, Morell, who's out tracking down the Insulindian phasmid. She's very worried about him, and asks the detectives to keep an eye out for him. Harry can agree, but it won't be until day 3, at the earliest, that he'll get a chance to meet Mr. Cryptozoology himself. He'll find him out past the ruined Fell building and the boardwalk, setting up traps for the notorious giant insect. Despite the bad weather, his age, and his subpar health, he initially refuses to get out of the cold and return to his wife. But with some convincing, he will go back to the Whirling, but only if Harry and Kim agree to check on his traps for him. The ensuing beachfront search by the two detectives ends up being one of the more charming side quests in the game. I'll have more to say about this in a future video, but one of the things Disco Elysium does best is how it, at times, and depending on the choices you make, presents a vision for police that positions them as community helpers rather than law enforcement, which is particularly interesting considering the conversations that have taken place around the institution here in the United States since the turn of the decade. It's also a great bonding experience for Harry and Kim. Though he begins the side quest disinterested and remains skeptical of cryptids throughout, Kim does start to have some fun by the end of it. Plus, at this point in the journey, Harry has the potential to have essentially won Kim over, so it's just nice to see them enjoy themselves, run around the beach, and search empty traps rather than investigate dead bodies. If Harry checks out all 3 of the traps, he'll discover that the locusts are still alive and well in 2, but missing from the 3rd. Returning to Morell with this information will get the old cryptozoologist incredibly excited. Finding the Insulindian phasmid is his life's work, and the reason he and Lena found each other in the first place. He explains that the night they met, Lena told him that she'd seen the elusive creature in her youth. Her description of it matched all confirmed sightings and was more detailed than any account on record. From then on, Morell was enamored with her, and thus the relationship began. To him, seeing the phasmid wouldn't just be the culmination of his career, it would be the crown jewel of his marriage. Desperate for answers, Morell sends Harry out looking for the missing locusts. But unfortunately for him, the bugs were taken by the devious Kuno, and not the phasmid. The news is heartbreaking for Morell, but to make matters worse, his stint at the beach was terrible for his health. Stricken with the cough, he goes home to recover. It's here that Lena opens up with her perspective on the elusive cryptid. During our earlier conversation with Morell about her sighting, Lena is noticeably dismissive of her own story, downplaying its significance. Privately, she admits to Harry that she's unsure about whether or not she actually saw the thing, or if it, like so many other memories from the days of our youth, was but a half-truth. Something she misremembered, or a strange event that she couldn't make heads or tails of, and just said it was the phasmid to fill in the gaps. She then asks Harry what she should do about this, whether or not she should admit to Morell that her memory of the event might be incorrect. His answer has little impact on the story. We don't see Lena again after we leave for the Sea Fortress. But this entire conversation gets really interesting when you consider Harry's own relationship status. As we all know, Harry is still hung up on Dora, his ex-fiancée. As I've covered in other videos, their romance was not nearly as perfect as he often makes it out to be. It started out fine, a typical situation where she thought he was cool, and he thought she was attractive. But over time, it became deeply flawed due to Dora's inability to adjust to Harry's evolving needs, namely the stress of police work, a job she encouraged him to pursue, as well as his lack of attraction to her beyond the physical, and his addictive personality. Their bond wouldn't have been able to survive the hard times, the trials and tribulations that every couple goes through. So we've got a relationship built on a typical foundation that fell apart when exposed to real-world difficulties. On the other hand, Lena and Morell's relationship is the opposite. It was built on what might have been a lie, but has endured because they've continued to support each other. Morell has stood by Lena through her disability, while she's constantly looking out for his health and backing him up on his cryptid hunts. Fortunately, by the end of the game, it's made very clear to us that Lena's story wasn't a lie. Rather, it seems her memory was affected by the very real cryptid, in a similar way to how it caused Alzheimer's-like behavior in The Deserter. If Harry took a picture of the phasmid, he can make plans to inform Lena and Morell of the discovery. It's one of many reasons it's a shame that we'll never get a true Disco Elysium sequel, because I'd love to know how Lena and Morell are celebrating Harry's incredible finding. All of this, the sudden reveal of the notorious creature, just shortly after Lena tells Harry and Kim that she's unsure if she ever saw it, all reinforces the hopeful tone of the ending. The phasmid, the very symbol of Lena and Morell's love and their marriage, is real after all. And if a romance built on mythical creatures can survive, then perhaps there's hope yet for Harry. that he'll overcome his alcoholism, his mental illness, his broken heart, and move forward. Whether that's by continuing his partnership with Kim, taking Kuno under his wing, or following in the footsteps of the cryptid couple and starting a new relationship on top of the ruins of his failed love affairs. Whether that's with Liliana or someone else entirely. And that's what makes Lena and Morell so important to Disco Elysium. Thanks for watching. Huge thanks to Zakid, who allowed me to use his incredible piano covers from the Disco Elysium soundtrack for these videos. To check out all of his music, just follow the link down below in the description box. Big shout out to my silver and gold tier subscribers, including James Pruitt, Raven Lambkin, Hori Matson, Gustavo Balabi, Lil Caesar, Reed, and Pathonian, who get early access to these videos thanks to donations of $5 to $10 a month. See you guys next time.